Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our February 8th, 2021 regular meeting of Belleville City Council. We gather today under the terms and conditions of a provincial declaration of emergency and during a second period of a province-wide shutdown, which is currently scheduled to be December 27, 2020 to February the 10th, 2021. We are all aware of the seriousness of these times and the sacrifices we have all been making for each other. I want to thank our staff for assisting in the setup of this electronic meeting of Belleville City Council. I also want to thank all members of council for their cooperation and flexibility in meeting under these circumstances as permitted by the provincial government. We all know the need for cooperation during the best of times. These virtual meetings are difficult and awkward, so I look to my colleagues for extra cooperation as we conduct the business necessary for the operations of the City of Belleville. For those members of the public who are watching on the city streaming service or our YouTube channel or on your TV, I would point out that our agenda and all reports are on the city website at www.belleville.ca under the Agenda, Minutes, and Live Meeting Video section on the left side of the screen. If you click on that and then click on February 8th on the calendar, it will bring you to the agenda for today's meeting. There is a hyperlink on the agenda in the event you wish to look at the reports, and you can follow along. I will now call the meeting to order and state that all members of council are present. I am here at City Hall and all other members are present electronically. I would also like to welcome Councillor Tyler Alsap to the council table. Councillor Alsap was sworn in this morning in the presence of the city clerk and has met all the requirements to permit him to fill the vacant seat for the remainder of the term. Welcome, Councillor Alsap. I will now ask for a moment of reflection and ask the Director of Corporate Services, Mr. McDonald, to lead us.
May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Help us to be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chambers minds that think and hearts that feel, always having respect for others so that we may serve the people of our city in a helpful manner and for the good of all.
Thank you. Item number 3 on the agenda, disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Councillor Williams. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mine is 8B11 Grant Committee. I've already disclosed that in the Grant Committee. 4.1, which is the first item. If you want to pass the rest and give them that, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, there are no public meetings today. So reading and confirmation of the minutes of the special council meeting of January 20th, 2021, the regular council meeting minutes of January 25th, 2021, and the regular in-camera meeting minutes of January 11th, 2021. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Alsap, you weren't at those meetings, so we can't get you to move it, but I see Councillor Carr and Councillor Sandison. The next meeting you will be able to. So motions on the floor. Any questions or comments on that? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. So there are no deputations today and we have no correspondence. So we'll move on to item number 8, Committee of the Whole, and a motion to go into Committee of the Whole to hear and consider reports, passing of recommendations and resolutions with myself in the chair. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Williams, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All in favor, it's carried. Reports. The agenda shall include under reports items that warrant individual attention from council. And we'll start with 8A1, renovations to City Hall Council chambers. The resolution is that in accordance with section 30.3, sole and single sourcing, approval and reporting of the city's purchasing bylaw number 2020-09, the quotation from Avius for the installation of digital infrastructure and related electronic equipment within City Hall in the amount of $75,000 plus $9,750 HST for a total of $84,750 be accepted, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the city of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal, and that the 2020 capital budget item number 1.039 be amended by adding $130,000 from the capital levy reserve to the project budget. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Millette. Any questions or comments on this? Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Just a quick question. And I'm going to be in favor of, I know we looked at the chairs before, if we're going to spend that kind of money on City Hall, I certainly agree with the the chairs being put in now. My only concern is the budget was originally 236,000, and now all of a sudden we're adding another 130. I would have, and I know some of the wiring, talking to Mr. Beauvais today or yesterday, the wiring we didn't know about, but it's a bit of alarming to add 130 partway through a project. So can sort of everybody get a briefing of why the 75,000 has come forward in more of a language from either Rod or from Mark?
Sure, I'll ask Mr. Beauvais. I will point out, though, that we were expecting accessibility funding, which unfortunately did not come through. So, Mr. Beauvais, do you want to give a little bit of background for Councillor Thompson on this?
Certainly, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Thompson and all of Council. As Council is aware, the work has got underway. The contractor working now in the Council chamber on some of the modernization efforts. While we were designing the changes to the Council chamber, we were looking at the electronic components that are in the Council chamber that allow us to stream our Council meetings and allow deputations to make presentations and all of those things. And in doing that, we recognized there was a number of limitations in the infrastructure that we had electronically, and Mark Coyle through IT and our contractor AIS has looked at it in detail, and they've identified a number of upgrades that are necessary to our fiber infrastructure and the components within the Council chamber that allow us to do all of those things digitally and electronically. And so they've identified on quite a few upgrades that result in this quote for 75,000, and it will set us up for allowing electronic voting at Council meetings, which is an item that Council has already identified through the 2020 capital budget with a small item for some of the equipment that will be in front of each councillor at the new table. And this upgrade that we're looking at electronically will address all of that. And the work that we're doing will set the Council chamber up to be user-friendly for many years down the road. And we expect we'll get many good years of service out of these upgrades electronically speaking.
Okay,
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to support the motion as well. And at our budget meeting in 2019, I asked, and we deferred purchase of new chairs at that time, and come to realize that in that instance that we have to remember this furniture has been around for more than 30 years. We are replacing, and we're even being frugal in some respects for the gallery. We're taking out some of those 30-year-old chairs that have been quite heavily used. Some of them are downright unsafe, and we're taking some from other meeting rooms in the city. As regard to the Council chamber itself, again, we're looking at 3 decades old infrastructure that's in there. And the improvements that I've seen, having been in the chamber to have seen the work that was done last week when I was there, we're going to allow for much greater access, I believe, electronically for the public to take part in our meetings, as well as a more efficient and better delivery of service in terms of having our senior staff members being present right at hand. If anybody looks at the current hodgepodge of situations, we have senior staff members sitting in the gallery with laptop computers on their laps. And any municipality, modern municipality, that isn't acceptable. I mean, 3 decades on since that was done, the work was done in that chambers. Look at your own houses, I would suggest, and tell me if some aspects of your 30-year-old kitchen doesn't need an upgrade. So I'm going to support this. It's a big price tag, but it, as Mr. Bove said, going in future years, we've got a decent working platform for democracy in the city.
Good. Councillor Sanderson.
Yeah, thank you. Through your worship to Director Hines. Just want to clarify. So we're not increasing the project by 130,000. What we're doing is we're making up for the 92,500 that we had expected through the Enabling Accessibility Fund. And the difference, in fact, is the real increase, which is about 37,500. Is that correct?
Go ahead, Director Hines. I see she's just connecting. Do you want to try perhaps your other device, Director Hines, and just unmute it? Mr. Bove, do you want to take a shot at that while we're waiting for Director Hines to
Certainly, through you to council. Yeah, unfortunately, we weren't successful in our application for that accessibility funding. That obviously would have been certainly well received. I can point out there are numerous, even though we didn't get that money, we are moving ahead with numerous accessibility upgrades in the council chamber. There will be a new door for the council chamber, which will have an automated opener on it for accessible purposes. And the new public podium to make presentations at council will be one that is adjustable based on the user in terms of the height of the desks that will be there and the equipment that is there for them to make their presentation. So those are just a couple of the upgrades that will certainly improve accessibility within the council chamber.
All right, Councillor Sanderson, I see Director Hines has joined us. Anything you want to add to that, Director Hines?
No, we have, obviously we have a funding issue. We were not successful with our grant application. So, obviously we need to find funding from another source. And we're recommending that the additional money come from the Capital Levy Reserve Fund.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sanderson, anything else? No, okay. Next on the list is Councillor Alsap. Go ahead.
Yeah. Through the chair to CEO Rob Bove. I noticed in the report that there was $48,000 was the estimate for the furniture. I didn't see a large breakdown. I did see the reference to the chairs. What specifically do we get for the $48,000? Is it just chairs, or are some of the things like the automated door, like the adjustable podium, is that what's included in that as well? Or does that fall under the technology budget?
Go ahead, Mr. Bove.
Through the chair to Councillor Alsap, the $48,000 is for the chairs and other furniture. So that will replace all of the gallery chairs that the public use in the chamber. It will replace all of the chairs that council use around the council table, and it will provide chairs and tables for the senior staff that will run along the north wall of the council chamber beside the actual council table. So it's a number of different things. The accessibility upgrades are included within the current contract partially, and then partially within the electronic quotation that's before council today.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Thompson on a second round, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick statement on the accessibility. I chair the accessibility. It's important that we have all these accessibility issues addressed during this time. And the nice part about it, there's a ramp up to the mayor's chair, which is showing as our moving forward and making sure all accessibility issues are addressed. So thank you.
Very good. Anyone else? Seeing none, the question is on the floor. I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. 8A2, the City of Belleville Transportation Committee. Deputy City Clerk Report Number DCC 2021-01. And the resolution is that council approve the recommendations of the Transportation Committee for those items outlined in the Deputy City Clerk's Report number DCC 2021-01, City of Belleville Transportation Committee. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Carr. Any questions or comments? Councillor Thompson.
Worship, I chair the Transportation Committee along with 2 or 3 councillors that sit on it. The main things in this, there's an A and B to this. One of them is the heavy truck traffic on Mitchell Road and Elma Drive. Originally, it was supposed to be just Mitchell Road, but Manager Joe Reed here may also want to chime in on this. We decided to do Elma Drive also. Both of them have railway tracks, and we felt that if we just did Mitchell, that they would migrate down to Elma Drive. So we felt it was important that if we're going to change this heavy truck traffic, we do both at the same time. And both of them are only surface treatment roads. So with the heavy traffic that we're getting today in transports, having some pretty heavy vehicles traveling those, is important that we maintain those roads as best we can. And then the second half is the half load. And really what we're doing there is changing the availability time for Mr. Reed to be saying, okay, we can only allow half loads starting earlier because of the climate change. We're getting warmer in the spring. Sometimes we need to move it up or back, whatever you want to make it. And so now we're going to be able to do it as of February 15th, where before it was earlier or later rather. And if we started earlier, we might be able to quit it earlier on the half load. So it's really more or less to maintain our roads in better condition. And if the weather permits, then we can change it to an earlier time closing and an earlier time opening it up. So it's really for the benefit of our roads, and it gives that opportunity to Mr. Reed. I don't know whether he wants to chime in or not. So thank you.
Mr. Reed, do you have anything you want to add to that as per Councillor Thompson's invitation?
No, Councillor Thompson covered off a significant amount of the. I just want to note that our recommendation is that it's at the next council meetings read a first reading to allow for public comment if required. The basis of our recommendation to change it is to give more flexibility to us to protect our assets that we have in our current road conditions. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Anyone else on this item? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. 8A3, sidewalk patio standards and application guidelines, and it is the engineer and training's report number ENG 2021-01. And the resolution is that the sidewalk patio standards and application guidelines be endorsed by City Council. Can I get this on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Sandison, seconded by Councillor Millette. Any discussion on it? Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
Worship. I just want to chime in on as far as the accessibility committee was concerned with this application here today to set up the patios. Through our accessibility coordinator, we were consulted. Some of us did a walkthrough last summer during the patio, and that's where the accessibility committee became fairly actively involved to make sure we maintained a pathway of travel down the main street or down our sidewalks, because there's always people with mobility devices that's important that sort of can't walk around some certain things. So we're trying to maintain that 1.5 meter clearance all the way down our streets in particular, but we're also trying to make sure that we make sure our city businesses have the opportunity to open their patios, because it was such a success last year with the downtown VBIA doing some promotions, and our patios were a big success, and partially maybe because of the COVID, but we don't know what's going to bring us now. But the thing is that we asked this and we've got it through the city. So the merchants were talked to, the DBAO was talked to, and there certainly was a consensus that this is agreeable. But I know Councillor Millette's going to have a question also, but I may chime in. There's a merchants that talking about parking spots in front of their spot So maybe if Maria and Councillor Sanderson or Councillor Millette can get an answer about the merchant and happens to be the one in Gourmet Diem wanting maybe 2 parking spots instead of 1. Can one of the staff answer today if these are negotiable as far as parking spots?
So I don't understand your question, Councillor Thompson.
Well, right
They
now,
want additional parking. They want additional parking spots.
right now, the way it looks in our reading is it's only 1 parking spot for a certain store in there, and they're looking at 2. So I just bring that up. That's something maybe we don't need
So
an answer
you
today.
still lost me, Councillor
Well-
Thompson. I'm still lost.
Well,
They're asking for a special parking spot for their customers to park at.
no, to extend their patio out into the
They want to
parking.
extend their patio onto the parking areas.
That's right.
And okay, so let's get some information on that. I'm assuming that it's going to be either Director Bove or Mr. Reed. The sidewalk patio standards, are we expecting those to be on the road, or is it just for the city-owned sidewalk that these standards are for? And I'll go back. Last summer, we closed portions of the road, particularly for the Prismatica display, in order to allow some temporary patios on the indented parking areas along the street. But that was because traffic was restricted. So I guess the question is, if we're not going to be reducing the lanes of traffic in downtown, how would we be able to take parking spots from a safety point of view? So Director Bove, do you want to take a shot at that, and we can see if Mr. Reed can add to it?
Certainly, Your Worship, through you to council, and obviously if Mr. Reed or Mr. Ashton want to jump in, I'll certainly cede the floor. Yeah, last year during COVID was a little unique. We allowed a number of parklets, I guess we called them, that were located within parking spaces in the downtown, in addition to closing the 1 lane of Front Street for a portion of the summer. The patio guidelines as they're proposed, would recognize some of that, subject to the owner, I believe, being required to lease the parking spot or spots from the city. And there's obviously a fee for that, and some restaurants and establishments have made that arrangement in the past with the city. And so, whether that's something they're anticipating next year, I will leave up to the others to comment on, and perhaps even our city clerk, Matt McDonald, responsible for parking, may have something to add as well.
And I think my understanding is that the city of Belleville is Director Ashton. Is that correct? And if it is, if you want to activate your microphone, and you can add to that if you'd like. We're just trying to get him here. I see a message from him. Just one moment. Here we go. Okay, go ahead, Director Ashton. Just need to unmute your microphone.
It is Director Axton, and then the staff under him is Maria Godfrey.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
There you go.
All right. If the principle would be that if you had a business, it would be the parking spot in front of you that you were limited to access. Last year, we did have some of the restaurants with multiple spots, and that was coordinated through the BIA. So if there was a request for an additional parking spot, that could be made through the BIA to city staff, and that would be sort of an initiative of the BIA to coordinate. However, I guess with patios, not everyone is a restaurant, so sometimes there is a bit of conflict between people that don't own restaurants and the parking spots in front of them. So that's why we would rely upon the BIA to sort of bring forward a BIA stance in terms of whether a restaurant would want to have 2 spots, and that, whether that would be supported by the general business.
Okay, Director Thompson or Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, no,
Okay, so
Thank
I
you.
think a question which sort of gets begged on that, Director Ashton, is if we approve this policy, does that matter between the BDIA and the individual restaurant or tenant? Is it an administrative matter that you have delegated authority to approve, or does that have to come back to council in the future?
No, it would be delegated, but we would rely upon making sure there was support of the adjoining businesses.
Okay, so good.
That it would impact.
Right, thank you, Councillor. Thank you. I've got Councillor Millette next on the list. Go ahead, Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Your Worship. And again, further to this issue about the parking spaces, on page 12 of Ms. Godfrey's report, section 4, in on-street parking space, it requires that where the public right-of-way is not large enough to support a patio on the sidewalk or subject to city consideration. I think, or subject to city consideration, may be the operative phrase in this policy. Patios may be located within an on-street parking space, an on-street parking space. Now, in speaking with Ms. DeWall at Gourmet Diem today in particular, her concern was, and she noted other businesses as well, such as the Export Grill and Chilangos have made substantial investments in taking patio space, extending it into those parking areas for 2 spots. And it works in 2 ways. It helps with distancing as well as giving them a decent patio, because if you're limited to 1 space, 1 parking space, owing to distancing and simple number of tables, you're limiting yourself to the amount of business you can do. As well, I think going forward, what we've seen inadvertently through this is it's a good business model. An awful lot of the businesses on Front Street have found, this sidewalk cafe thing is pretty cool. And the people that have been, the positive feedback they got, regardless of COVID, in speaking with Ms. DeWall, is that the business is quite good if you do that. So I think working with perhaps downtown association, if there may be some flexibility in this, I think that's what some of these restaurants and pubs are looking for, is that we can be flexible in this regard. And I know we closed it down to 1 lane for the Prismatica display. The 1 lane closure, according to some businesses, really helped their business. So again, it's a moving target to find the thing that's the silver bullet that'll help downtown businesses. But this is one that I think that we should be flexible on, and I would hope going forward that while this policy is pretty definite in some of the things that they outline, I would hope that there's flexibility built in for businesses such as Gourmet Diem, Chilangos, Export, and the others that have taken the time and the expense to expand their businesses in a way that makes them profitable and popular with businesses or customers downtown. So.
Thank you. Anyone else on this item? Councillor Carr.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I certainly appreciate the recommendation that this type of thing be delegated to staff. And with that, just a question to Director Ashton. So obviously there's a process outlined, there's applications, there's requirement for drawings. If an applicant were to have all of their materials into the city, what do you envision in terms of turnaround time on a decision, since it doesn't require the process through council?
Through the chair to Councillor Carr, as long as the drawings are perfect, and sometimes, well, actually, it would be Maria, that would be involved with just those discussions with the applicant. It could be within the week for approval.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, I see Councillor Thompson wants to go again, but does anybody else want to say something on the first round? Okay, Councillor Thompson.
No, I think the what's come out of this now is that the merchants know now that they can go with the DBIA and to City Hall, and it is some flexibility in there. We're not always stuck in a certain route, so it's variance, and that's important. So thank you.
Oh, great. Yeah, you know, this was the summer of 2020 was a very new experience. In the past, in Ontario, the LCBO has been very unwilling to expand outdoor patios. You know, probably over the years, there have been lots of examples in Ontario of noise complaints and other activities that especially in residential neighborhoods, people did not want to see. But because of COVID and because of the fact that we had to socially distance and they were discouraging people from congregating inside small locations, you know, we were given for the first time the ability to have these outdoor sidewalk patios. And I think that, you know, there were no real issues around Ontario. There were some noise issues here in the city that some people who live downtown were complaining about, but they were small. The positive comments we received about this were fantastic, and it was great to be able to support these businesses downtown that really needed this opportunity. So I think the question that came up with Councillor Thompson and Councillor Millette is trying to respect the investment that our property owners have made downtown in terms of having those larger parklet style of construction. But you know, when you take a look at downtown and the Prismatica display and the people that came and how you know, not just restaurants and bars, but also other businesses were able to go out onto the sidewalk. You know, that's part of what we had envisioned when we made that $35 million investment in downtown, to be able to give more life and to be able to give more creativity. So I'm happy that we're now going to formalize this policy, and so it's much more understandable. It's not going to be the ad hoc kind of do it as it came up as we went through last year. And I want to say thank you to Director Ashton, but also Joe Reed from Operations, who really were creative, as well as Matt McDonald in the city clerk's office, to try to allow those businesses to give it a start. But I know going forward that while we're delegating the authority to approve these patios to Director Ashton, all of us as councillors can certainly advocate for business owners if they would like to have a second stall, so they can have because they have circumstances that warrant it, and they can work through the BDIA. And I think that the message we're sending is we liked what we saw in the summer of 2021, and we want to see it continue for the benefit of our residents moving forward. Thank you everyone for that. The question is on the floor. All in favor? It's carried. We'll move on to item 8A4, Outdoor Recreation Facility Update. It is the General Manager of Transportation and Operations Services, report number GMTOS 2021-02. And the resolution is that pursuant to the General Manager of Transportation and Operations Services, report number GMTOS 2021-02, Council received the Outdoor Recreation Facility Update and direct management to proceed with the planning stage of the project at the former Quinte Exhibition and Raceway Fairgrounds. Can I get this on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor Williams. Questions and discussion. Councillor Williams, is your motion? I'll recognize you, then Councillor Carr.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy we've got this again, and we're talking about it again. I know that it was something we talked about earlier on in our in council, and something that we've gone around a couple times in a couple different ideas. But the Rotary Club has been involved, and it's great to see that they're still involved. I've spoken to a few of them in the last couple days, and certainly, you know, the Rotary Club is a great partner. And the reason is, number one, they're committed, and they've already raised some money. They had some Hockey Night in Canada fundraisers, and they've also had some members who have made commitments to this project. So I think that is fantastic. And I certainly want to see this move forward. The questions I have are going to be around just some more detail of this project. And hoping when we get this back, maybe we can, and I'll let this go around the horseshoe, or the Zoom panel, or what I call this, but hopefully we can get some more answers just to bat this around just a little bit. I think we want to do this right. We want to have it done well. And I think we want to have the money raised and have some partnerships. I know that some of the questions I have will be around what other partnerships are we going to look at? I know this piece of land, I have some questions just around where, when, and how is it going to work with some of the other partnerships that we're looking at on this piece of land, like the YMCA. And I'm probably just going to go through yourself, your worship, to Mr. Bove to start. Have we discussed, or maybe to Mr. Reed, because I know that he wrote the report, have we discussed some logistical items like a Zamboni? Have we discussed and how much have we gone down the path of looking at pickleball, basketball, all around seasons? And maybe one last one I'll just ask quickly. He may not have any of these answers. You might tell me we need to get them. Is going to be on certain things like refrigeration. I know the first round of this, and listening to some presentations from Smith Falls when they did their outdoor rink, there was a lot of questions on how does the refrigeration work to make sure this surface can last as long as it can. So perhaps if I can direct some of those to Mr. Reed, he may not have a lot of them. We can start with that discussion.
Manager Reed, or General Manager Reed.
Through the chair to all council, all great questions, Councillor Williams. But again, today's report is about selecting the location, and then from there we plan on going through the planning stages to determine, what exactly is going to be a part of the outdoor recreation facility. We're just undertaking the Parks and Rec Master Plan. It's going to be phase one of the draft is going to be to us in the next week or so, and that's going to help us guide on what exactly the community needs are for that facility. Off the top of our head and in the report, outdoor ice skating and those type of things, maybe a basketball court incorporated into it. But once we get, once we determine the location, we can then start doing the planning stage, and, it'll have some public comment or public surveys incorporated into it to really gauge what the community wants and see at this facility. I think, that'll all also tie into, is it refrigeration incorporated into it? Maybe not, maybe. Those are all things that we need to determine. But, our biggest thing here right now is just determining the location, and then we can start our planning.
Okay, and through the chair, do we have other options? Was this, I know this is a great option. Hey, I'm going to look a lot of merits to this. Again, if the YMCA was there, the location in terms of being around a lot of our new housing. Are there other locations we've looked at? I know at one point we even talked about Thurlow, but were there other locations, or is this the one? Is this the one that staff are saying this is the best because of X, Y, Z?
Yeah, no, we had through the chair to all council, we looked at various locations with Rotary, including Bird Park as one, and one in the East Hill as well. But this one had significant merit just with the synergies that can be achieved with not only the YMCA, but also the curling club. I've had discussions with them, and there's definitely merit and some partnerships we can probably look at with them. This one will be, is a good high profile location. It's along, Bridge Street. It's along the active transportation trails that are, built on Bridge Street by the fairgrounds. And, that's why we're recommending as the first outdoor recreation facility.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me for now.
All right, Councillor Carr.
Thank you. Yeah, just similar questions. Try not to repeat though. What are we looking at in terms of size of property? If I could get an answer to that one from General Manager Reed.
We want to look at the footprint that it's going to require to, put an outdoor ice rink there. Probably, a few acres in total, kind of keep in line. We don't want to have it as too large of a parcel, but we want to make sure we have sufficient space to, make sure we cover off everybody's needs.
And was the Queen Mary School property ever considered?
That's the one off Octavia Street.
Yes.
Yes, we did look at that one. Just from, that one in particular isn't right on a bus route. We did consider that one, but it didn't have the same merits and the synergies as the fairgrounds location.
Okay. I guess it would be nice to see a little bit of a conceptual footprint that we're talking about. As we looked at unlocking this property through the Fairgrounds Negotiating Committee, was to realize a lot of this land for the purpose of tax revenue development. And the city council's made a commitment with the Y. We've also committed as a backup plan for some property here for Habitat if their first choice doesn't work in their favor. And then now we're looking at a community facility. I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but we're really starting to build up a lot of community-oriented property, which then starts to have away more and more from the tax revenue development that we were expecting, noting that the sale of that property is to offset the cost with the development that we have to do with the fairgrounds. The other thing that I find, and I just want to put it out there, is the Queen Mary School. I know it had its purpose, and that building, has its issues, but there's still that property there. And if there's one area in our municipality where we really haven't done much in the way of investment, is the West Hill. And I see that particular community there as requiring an investment from the city. And so that's kind of why I asked that question. I realize that this might be a little bit bigger of a project than what that piece of property may hold, but certainly as we proceed with the Parks Master Plan, I would really like to see the city make an investment on that property for that neighborhood. I think a lot of times when the city comes in and makes an investment, and we point to downtown as a prime example, from there, private sector investment follows through. I just want to put that out there for some conversation. But anyway, that's all the questions and comments I have. Thank you.
Before I recognize anyone else, maybe it'll be helpful for us just to go through the chronology of this item in terms of how we've been dealing with it. So council may remember back at December 2018 at our first meeting, Tim McKinney came on behalf of the Rotary Club and talked about an idea of an outdoor arena in partnership with the Belleville Senators Foundation and the Ottawa Senators Foundation. And in January of 2019, they had a presentation made at the Rotary luncheon. I know I was there. I know for a fact, Councillor Williams, you were there, and I don't recall how many other members of council. I think Councillor McCaw was there as well, and Director Bove. And they sort of talked about the Ottawa Senators Foundation and how they had built multiple arenas in the Ottawa region, and they were looking at us. And so, following that, we had some meetings with staff, and I had some meetings with the Rotary Club, and we sort of moved on beyond a single use outdoor arena only type of project, which they had in other communities. We started looking at a multi-purpose facility so that it could be used year round, not just in the summertime, but also looking at the fact that our winter in Belleville is shorter than, for example, in Ottawa. They have many more days that they would have ice. So we looked at some of these concepts of inexpensive refrigeration system, how the ice would be maintained, putting a roof on it, and whatnot. And so as we at that point, we funded some money for a study. I believe it was $50,000. I think it's in the report now, that we could start looking at some concepts. And we asked staff to come back with potentially 3 different locations, one of which would be in the Thurlow Ward part of the city. So they've gone through that process, and the recommendation now is that the fairgrounds property is the most appropriate. Before the lockdown, General Manager Reed and I met with the YMCA and with Joel Carbrandt, who's our project manager now, to talk about the layout of the Y, where we've already committed to them on the fairgrounds property. And through the course of that conversation, if you look at west of the curling club, between the curling club and where the the Belmont Nursing Home is, that tract of land from Bridge Street north to the property line, the YMCA was looking at being farther to the north, which would leave the corner there, between the Y and Bridge Street available. And that would actually be a better use for a type of facility than if it was to be farther to the east, because now you're getting into areas, as Councillor Carr talked about, that have a higher commercial value. So what we're looking at now, depending on council's decision, if we go ahead, was that this would be a multi-use facility that would include a year-round rink that could be used for ice hockey and skating in the wintertime, ball hockey and other activities in the summertime. There would be basketball courts, there would be a splash pad, there would be a playground, there would be a Tom Gavey pavilion-like style structure that we have at Zwick's Park, so that people can go in when it's super sunny or raining, and that there may be other amenities as well. The Rotary Club, and I want to be clear on this, the Rotary Club are interested. They have not committed to partnering with this. And we have said that we would like this facility to go ahead, whether they are able to be involved or not. Certainly they have raised some money for the outdoor rink, but there may be other components of this facility that they're also very interested in helping with. And we'll sort of see where that goes. Councillor Williams brought up the idea of pickleball. And certainly we hear all the time about the fact that we want pickleball and tennis and other outdoor amenities. And I think that with what we'll be doing at the Hillcrest site, now that we've purchased that former school and demolished it and are now looking at a full facility there and here, they can be very complementary. And maybe pickleball is not ideally for this site. Maybe it's more for the Hillcrest site or vice versa. We will see how it goes. But that gives you a little bit of background on it. What I'd also say is that this is probably a template that we would like to use if it's supported in other parts of the city. So for example, Bird Park, a similar style facility, maybe not exactly the same, but a similar style facility. You know, this winter we've seen with COVID, people want to be outside. They're using our facilities. This year is being more popular for outdoor arenas than we've had in recent years. So popular, in fact, that it's causing some challenges for the community volunteers. So I give that as background. I hope that helps. Councillor Kelly and then Councillor McCaw, I've got you on the speakers list.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say thanks to the General Manager Joe Reed for the report. Well done. And the fairgrounds would be an exciting place if this happens. And I just wanted to thank the Belleville Rotary Club. They've been so committed to keeping the city active. If you take a walk, go down to Riverside Park, you see the work there. So a shout out to all the members of the Belleville Rotary Club. Thanks for your commitment to the city, and hopefully you can partner with the city on this, because there's lots of benefits. And as you mentioned, Mayor, more people are out and about, and I think they've seen the benefits to their own health over the past year. And I think that that's one thing that they'll continue to do, is that's to be more active. And if we have the facilities, it's a win-win. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Councillor McCaw and then Councillor Alsap.
Thank you, through you. Of course, I've always been concerned about this particular topic, even prior when we discussed it being a sense rink. I'm still concerned. We don't know the costs of the facility. We don't know the annual maintenance costs. A lot of people are concerned, residents are concerned about many things, and taxes being one of them. It's the cost of construction, I don't know. It's the cost of the annual maintenance that I can't be sure of. And there's no solid commitment from Rotary. I appreciate their 20,000 plus that they raised at their hockey night in Quinte, but we have no commitment from them. And even if we had a commitment from them, they're still not going to commit to annual maintenance costs. And any of the studies that I did back when we first posed the sense rink, I mean, we're talking things such as back in 2012 in Ottawa, the sense rink of Dreams itself was $2.4 million. So that was in 2012. Their annual operating cost was about $250,000. Again, those are the concerns I have. And I'm just concerned at this time about supporting this initiative for those reasons only. Not saying in the future I wouldn't consider it, but given this time, I have a real problem without this information as to actually being able to vote in favor of anything to do with this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. So Councillor McCaw, what we're asking for now is that they proceed with the planning stage of the project. So we're not committing that we would go ahead with it. We haven't funded it. We do have some funding available for outdoor recreation facilities that we put into the 2021 capital budget, but that's not what we're deciding today. And I think that the whole issue of the Belleville Senators' involvement is still up in the air. Just like as I've been very clear, the Rotary Club has not decided that this is going to be a capital project for them. They will still look at it. They've raised between $15,000 and $20,000 through a couple of activities. And they've got some members or past members who have made a pledge. But that's, I don't think we can proceed with this project based on that assumption. We have to be prepared to proceed with it on our own. And if they can help out, that would be great. But it's not a commitment today to go ahead with it. Councillor Alsap and then Councillor Sandison.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As a former resident of that neighborhood, as recently as 2 weeks ago, I can assure you that youth in that area are desperately in need of outdoor recreation facilities. I think that this would be a great thing for people in that neighborhood to be able to get out, to be more active. The fact that it is located on a transportation route is fantastic. It makes it a lot more accessible and easier to get to. And then the possible synergies, obviously, with the YMCA are really exciting. And I think by entering the planning stage, we can maybe sort out some of the costing and what is actually going to go there. But I think it is an important thing to look at, particularly for that neighborhood.
Thank you, Councillor Alsap. Councillor Sandison.
Thank you, Your Worship, and certainly thanks for providing that sort of refresher on the background. I personally think it's a terrific idea, and I think it's great that we're moving ahead or looking to move ahead at that site. I think the need is obvious, with the growth in the western part of the city, and the location is ideal. It'll sort of, for the four corners at Sydney and Bridge, it'll sort of be part of the whole transformation of that area. And, when you think of the residential commercial development that's going to occur there, on top of what's happening out in Potter's Creek, I think it'll be a well-used facility. I suppose similar to Councillor McCaw, there's going to be a concern of the cost, but it's probably north of $1 million and south of $2 million would be my guess at this early stage if we're going to provide a state-of-the-art kind of facility for the community. The one thing, and you did touch on it, when we tabled this in 2020, we were going to, that $50,000 budget, we were going to look at a Ward 1 location and a Ward 2 location. And I sort of hear from the conversation, we're drifting around Bird Park, but there are other locations in Ward 2 that could also benefit from such a facility. So I guess I'd like to ask General Manager Joe Reid. I know that when we put the current 2021 capital budget together, we did allocate $300,000 for Bird Park, and certainly the usage that the community have with their, I guess this would be the third consecutive year where they put together a neighborhood rink. When I look at the location and the fact that it's sitting on 7 acres, it could certainly benefit from the kind of structure that we're talking about here for the current location at the Sydney Bridge location. So if I could ask General Manager Reid if he could just make some comments in terms of where we are relative to Bird Park, and specifically, I guess, any negotiations that might have to occur with the pipeline people, that would be helpful.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Sanderson, we have reached out to the pipeline. We want to get some definite setback requirements so we can really determine a plan for future growth at Bird Park. With Settlers Ridge and the other subdivisions in the close proximity growing, we see the need there, in time, but we want to make sure we do it right, and we don't place things over the pipeline, in contravention to what we're allowed to do. That's, we just recently, and we haven't heard back from them yet, but as soon as we get that, we'll incorporate that into the plan moving forward. And we're also, eager to see what the results are from the Parks and Rec master plan as far as, demographics and usage and, and recommendations.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have some questions. I have no trouble supporting this at this stage and understanding that it is in fact simply going ahead to enter into a planning phase. I would, however, like to see it more fulsomely outlined in the parks master plan. I look forward to seeing anything more on this sort of thing coming forward when that draft comes out in a week's time, as Mr. Reid said. But can I just get some clarification? The location here is in the center portion of this location near the grandstand, or would there still be land hard onto Sydney Street and towards that intersection that's available for commercial use or residential, or is this facility envisioned to take that whole area minus the area that the YMCA is proposed?
Good question. So we are feeling very confident about the YMCA's application for provincial and federal funding. And if it's appropriate for me to say, we are waiting for the federal government to decide. So anyone who supports that project should get in touch with our federal member of parliament, Mr. Ellis, and encourage that to move along a little quicker. But I believe it was the beginning of December, Councillor Millette, or end of November, there was a meeting with Mr. Allen, people on his the committee that would deal with where the YMCA building might be situated, so they can start with some of their planning work. And in the course of that conversation, while we had originally thought they would want to be on Bridge Street at the far west end of the property between the curling club and the Bay, the Belmont nursing home, we found that they didn't have to be there, that they could actually move off of Bridge Street and go north on that side of the property a little further to the north, which then begs the question, what do we put between the Y and Bridge Street? So services run along Bridge Street. It's an ideal location, and that's where this proposal would be, in that area. It would not go in the grandstand. It would not go on the Sydney Street side. Those areas, that's the highest property value that the city can achieve by selling it. And as Councillor Carr rightly points out, that was part of how we're financing the whole move of the Ag Society and what we're doing up on 37 and Black Diamond Road. So that would go there. In addition to being placed there and being in close proximity to the Y will actually be able to use it for some of their outdoor recreation programming. They'll be able to help keep an eye on it, because supervision to ensure vandalism and damage doesn't occur is a big concern for us. That's why we're proposing more than one use. If it was just one activity, for example, just an outdoor ice rink for wintertime activity, then in the summertime, it doesn't justify having people keeping an eye on it. So we've got there, but it's different enough from what's going on at Marianne Sills Park that it does make that whole area another amenity.
Okay, that I think allays an awful lot of fears for a lot of people, because I'd been contacted when this report from Mr. Reid first came out, including some members of the Rotary Club, frankly, who said, whoa, wait a minute. I didn't know we were getting involved in picking up land that had earlier been marketed as saleable and highly valuable land. But yes, thank you very much for that, because that location is ideal. And as you said, it's got all the services and transportation. Thank you. I think that goes a long way to answering a lot of questions on this proposal.
Okay, anyone else on this? Councillor Williams.
Thank you. And just to add to that point too, with the costs, and we're going to see that all coming back, I want to make sure we're asking for as many partnerships as we can. And the one I'll allude to back again were the Ottawa Senators, who originally talked about $100,000 that could be put in. I'm not sure what kind of strings were attached to that, but I'd like to see that for council. I know that comes from the NHL, and that's given to teams to help proliferate outdoor hockey. And that's something maybe that we can look at when it comes to the financials. So just add on to that point.
All right, I don't see anyone else on this. So the motion is to proceed with the planning stage of the project at the former Queen Exhibition and Raceway Fairgrounds property.
Could I have a recorded vote, please?
Sure. Councillor McCaw has asked for a recorded vote. Mr. McDonald, when you're ready, you can start.
Councillor Carr,
Yes.
Councillor Kelly,
Yes.
Councillor Millette,
Yes.
Councillor McCaw,
No.
Councillor Sanderson,
Yes.
Councillor Thompson,
Yes.
thank you. Councillor Williams,
Yes.
Councillor Alsop,
Yes.
Mayor Panchak,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, great. So thank you. We'll move on to 8A5, supply and delivery of 5 Canadian Odyssey fare boxes. It's the Manager of Transportation Services report number MT 2021-01. And the resolution is that in accordance with section 30.3, sole and single sourcing, approval and reporting of the city's purchasing bylaw number 2020-09, the quotation from Garavel SEC be accepted for the purchase of 5 Canadian Odyssey fare boxes for the new transit buses in the amount of $113,350 plus $14,735.50 HST for a total of $128,085.50, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the city of Belleville, and the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal. Moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor Alsap. Any questions or comments on this? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. We'll move on now to consent items. Council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council shall consider such items individually. So I'll go around on the screen I have on the order I have on the screen. Councillor Sanderson, I'll start with you.
8B1.
8B1. And I know that Councillor Williams has he's declared a conflict on one of the items. Okay, Councillor Millette.
Yes, 8B. Oh, I had it here. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just having a senior moment here. 8B. Oh, pardon me, your worship. I had it here and I've just misplaced my document. I'm sorry. Yes, 8B8, please.
I was going to ask as chair of the Green Task Force.
Yes, well, I knew the item. I just forgot the number. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carr.
No, thank you.
Councillor Kelly.
No, thank you.
Councillor Alsap.
8C, 2C.
We're on 8Bs right now. We'll get to 8Cs next. So, okay. Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
No, thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Yes, thank you. 8B1, 8B11, just because of my conflict, 8B12, please.
Sorry, 8B1, 8B11, and 8B12.
Correct.
So if we're not going to pull it, I'll just get a motion by everyone else, by someone else to do 8B11. So you're the only, well, we have one person after you. If it's not pulled, then we'll just have the record reflect you didn't vote on that item. But 8B12, I've got you there. Thank you. Councillor McCaw.
Thank you. It's already pulled 8B12.
Okay, so I'm going to ask for a motion that the following agenda items be approved with the exceptions of 8B8 and 8B1, sorry, 8B8 and 8B12. So Councillor Williams is declared a conflict, so I won't have him move or second or vote on the item. So can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Carr and Councillor Millette, all in favor, it's carried. So we'll move to 8B1, and it is municipal elections, alternative voting methods. The Director of Corporate Services Clerk's Report number DCS 2021-03. And the resolution is that the Director of Corporate Services Clerk's Report number DCS 2021-03, municipal elections, alternative voting methods be received. Moved by Councillor Sandison and seconded by Councillor Williams. Councillor Sandison, you want to start us off? Do you have any questions?
Well, if we could, through the chair, if we could ask the city clerk just to sort of give us an overview.
Sure. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you. Through the chair, just so council is aware of the timeline, Councillor Williams had asked for a report on alternative voting methods in a by-election a couple meetings ago. It was not ready. I had not heard back from any vendors at that point or from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, both which were key to his request. So it's back to you now with a discussion and some information related to alternative voting methods, including cost estimates, which are rough estimates because at this point, anything related to alternative voting methods would require a competitive purchasing process, which would then have would really bring costs into a fixed process and some cost certainty. Beyond that, basically the costs were forecast forward from 2014-2018 costs, and some discussion based on alternative methods. The alternative methods and the background that's in it, looking at historical information, a lot of it from AMO and the information they collect every time there's an election, a discussion with some of my colleagues around the province that are similar size that have used alternative methods from online and telephone voting, vote by mail exclusively. Some of them that are still using a heavy paper process similar to Belleville without the benefit of an online presence during the advance period, and then just seeking information province-wide through professional association as to people's experiences using the methods and what the feedback is. So that's the basis of this. The intention, as outlined in the report, is to bring a report back to council for consideration for approval of an alternative method prior to the deadline in the Act of May 1st. My intent is to bring it in March to allow council to clearly identify their intent, if their intent is to delve further into the world of alternative methods of voting, and to allow some public input. I think there's some value in that. Some previous versions of council had some rigorous debate around the extended use of technology, including the extended advance periods for online voting, and the merits of that, which included safety and security of the vote, cost of that, in addition to running a more traditional election being paper ballots with tabulated count. So I think what I'm looking for from council is to digest the information you're provided, which granted is a lot of information, I'll bring a report back in consultation with Deputy Clerk. Christine Stewart and I run that election. It is a group effort significantly with corporate services staff, IT support, very heavy, but city support across all departments. But I think we'll bring a report back to you with a recommendation for your consideration and then get some public input on that. I think it's important. Changing format of voting from a traditional paper ballot to an alternative method, in my opinion, is a big step. I say in the report, the only cost savings are the significant cost savings realized when you change completely. We've been doing a hybrid system with online voting for advanced periods with our traditional paper ballot. And in effect, what we're doing is running two elections. We've got policies and procedures for both methods, and then we merge them to get results. It's not efficient or effective, really. You've got to be on top of both methods because they run consecutively. We're sending out voter notification cards for people who intend to vote on election day with paper, but who also have the ability to vote online during the advanced period. So as I said, you're running two elections that way, and it's from my perspective, it's neither efficient nor effective. So there are certainly efficiencies. You'll notice in the cost estimate, there's not a great deal of savings forecast. There are certainly areas where there could be savings realized. But again, until we do a competitive bid process and get some returns from the vendors and really look at training that would be required to get staff here comfortable with a different system, advertising costs, because my colleagues around the province that have transitioned from a traditionally paper process to an online, telephone, or vote by mail. One of the consistent comments from that group is educating voters through an aggressive advertising campaign is the key. If you don't do that, you're going to get voter frustration, voter confusion, and that all runs contrary to the principles of an election. So I think that is key, and particularly in the first year of a transition. So if that's something council is interested in, and there's cost to that, certainly in the first year until you have that down pat, and your electors certainly have some experience with it. So I think in a nutshell, that's a lot of the paper in front of you. That's it in a summary.
Yeah, thank you, Director McDonald. So I guess my interest is twofold. One, obviously, anything that makes the process easier for our residents to participate in, I certainly would be in favor. And also, if by expanding the methods or changing the methods, I guess, we can increase voter participation, I'd certainly be interested in that as well. The second reason I asked is because I think you said the report would come back in March. I'm just wondering if this would be an appropriate time to also evaluate the current two-ward system. And so certainly one of the issues that was raised during the last campaign was the current two-ward system, where since amalgamation we've had 6 councillors in Ward 1 and 2 councillors in Ward 2. And we've all seen a growth north of the 401 and to the west of the city. And certainly some of the ideas that have been brought forward is moving towards perhaps 8 wards with 1 councillor in each ward, or 4 wards with 2 councillors in each ward. And I'm just wondering if maybe I can ask your worship maybe for some guidance on this. Is this an appropriate time to sort of engage in this discussion, or should we handle it separately?
Well, I think, Councillor Sanderson, there are 2 different issues. What we're dealing with today is how a vote would be conducted, and it's the method of ballots online, through internet or telephone or mail-in ballots, or that style of the actual exercising of the franchise. And I think that I think all of us want to make it easier for people to participate, and also make it more cost effective. So we've looked at that, and Director McDonald's report has shown that. The issue with respect to, and that has to be decided by us for the 2022 election. It must be decided by May 1st, 2021. So we have a time on that. With respect to the boundaries in which councillors would be selected, currently we have the 2-ward system. If we're to make any changes, we do not have May 1st, 2021 as the deadline. I would suggest that we probably have until the end of the year, because changes in election boundaries, while they have to be in place before May 1st of the election year, you also have to leave time for residents that they wish to appeal it to the LPAT. And so I think that, again, if council wants to consider that, we should do that before the end of the year to give enough time for people to think about it. They have a chance to appeal it if they wish, and then whatever the decision is would be able to go into that next year. So, I know I've had conversations with many councillors about the 2-ward system, where we have about 2/3 of the population residing in Ward 1, where we have 6 at-large councillors, and then we have about 1/3 of the population residing in Ward 2, where we have 2 councillors. I certainly know as a Ward 1 councillor from 2014 to 2018, sometimes residents don't know who they want to call for help on this particular issue. And sometimes they go down the list, and sometimes they contact everybody. And, there's a lot to be said, but I think that's a separate issue from what we're dealing with right now, which is based on the request by Councillor Williams for the report on the style of voting. And we will have to make a decision by May 1st.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay. All right, anyone else on this? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, and thank you for the report, Mr. McDonald. I know it was, even though it's a little late, it was still pretty quick to get that kind of information, so thank you on that. I was really looking at this one based on our last debate over the last couple of months on just how we're looking at on council, and how we're going to the voters in a short while before picking another one. Again, just as Councillor Sanderson said, I agree with increasing voter turnout and keeping costs in line, but making it easier for people to vote. And when I started my research on this, and it was quite extensive of my own, I looked at 2, and one's around here and one's far away, but all of Nova Scotia have actually implemented telephone and online voting and eliminated polling stations. The municipality that I spoke to the clerk and a few of the councillors, was Cape Breton Regional Municipality, about 98,000 people, so about double our city size. They had their election actually October 17th, 2020, so very recent. They saw their numbers for turnout go up 10%, and at the same time they saw their costs go down, which is really great. Now, if we look at Tweed, Ontario, which is a lot closer than Cape Breton, they also did telephone and online voting. They actually saw their participation rate go down about 2%. But talking to both the Reeve and the clerk, they admitted their election was not very contentious. So maybe that had an issue with it too. So it's hard to look at this and say that for sure it's going to be able to increase one or the other, but it seems like in a lot of cases it has. And I know, as the clerk has stated in his report, that if we are doing this, I would prefer telephone and online. I think telephone is something that is easily managed by most of our constituents. But more specifically, I think the way that they do this, these companies, and I think some companies do it a little differently, they send registered mail to each of our voters, eligible voters, and there's a PIN, and they do ID verification by date of birth. So everyone is able to do this, but this is the most important part. And this clerk from Cape Breton let me know about this part. Each of the candidates would have access to voter lists, as we all do, prior to the election. But during the election, which would take about 2 weeks, they'd eliminate advanced polls. Those candidates were able to see who voted and who didn't. And then what happens in federal and provincial elections, more often than municipal, there's more of an effort to get out the vote, GOTV they call it, meaning that those candidates will be able to contact residents who have not yet voted and ensure that they vote. There's more communication. There would be more time for people who aren't understanding the process to get how that process would work. And more importantly, there'd be more people in my mind that would be able to then vote. I think that's what they saw in Nova Scotia. The more that they implemented the system, it allowed for a higher voter turnout, not because of the system, but because of the way that they do it over a couple week period, and they're able to do it. So I understand there's a lot of complexity to this to hopefully come to an end result, which would be an easier way to get people to vote. And so I think I look forward to the final report. I certainly would like to see the telephone and online voting be the one that we look at, which is similar again to Tweed and to Cape Breton in this case. Further to that, to Councillor Sanderson's point, there's other issues I think that we'd like to look at as well beyond just the voting method. And I know that Councillor Kelly has talked about the need to look at barriers to how people are able to put their name on a ballot. And I think looking at the voting process as a whole would be also, I think, something that I would like to look at. Now, that whether that's with Councillor Sanderson's idea about looking at the ward system as well, I would entertain and I would support that. But I think it's also very important that not only are we looking at probably sooner than later how the vote is taking place, it's also just equally as important to look at how people that want to put their name forward are able to do that and to eliminate or erase some of those barriers that exist with that. So thank you.
One of these days, we'll all get the mute, unmute process done. Thank you, Councillor Williams. Anyone else on this item? So the recommendation is to receive the report and that Councillor, we will see something else from Mr. McDonald at the beginning of March. So, you know, I think we've all talked about it. I do believe there is a consensus on us of trying to find ways in which to make the process easier to increase participation and also to be more cost effective. You know, I note that we've had online voting now for over 10 years. In 2010, that was the first election that we allowed online voting, and it's not exactly a smooth process. I recognize that, but you know, we've basically gone from about 412 votes that were cast using the online process in 2010 to 3,300 in 2018, which is about doubling, but it's still only about 20% of the overall number of votes cast. So we have a lot of people who still prefer or use the paper ballot. Some of the issues we also have to consider are the participation of residents who live in retirement residences, where we have polling stations in their residences, or nursing homes. You know, those of us who remember campaigning in 2018 remember going to some of those nursing homes to be able to meet residents. But we also want to remember vulnerable or disadvantaged residents and making sure that there is a way for them to participate. That's part of our responsibility as well, and making sure that even if people who choose not to exercise their right to vote still have an opportunity to do so. And so all that information, I think, is something that we will consider as we deal with the report coming back from Mr. McDonald on the style of voting. But I think the questions that Councillor Williams has brought up and Councillor Sanderson regarding you know, having more people participate in the process to seek election, but also to make it you know, less confusing for those residents who don't necessarily know all of their councillors. People who move to the region come in and find out that they have 6 members of council plus a mayor in one ward. Who do you call when you need something done about this or that? It's you know, there are other ways that other municipalities do. So I'll look forward to the report coming from Mr. McDonald at the beginning of March. And I think we don't want to rush it. You know, certainly if we provide some direction, I think it would be good for us to table it, and then we can come back to it to allow residents to have some feedback to us. But at the same time, we'll also continue to work on those other items that were discussed. Thanks everybody for their comments on this. So the motion's on the floor. I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. We'll now move to 8B8, Development and Operations Plan for the Thurlow Waste Disposal Site. It is the General Manager of Environmental Services, report number GMES 2021-01. And the resolution is that the General Manager of Environmental Services, report number GMES 2021-01, regarding the development and operations plan for the Thurlow Waste Disposal Site be received as information. Councillor Millet's moving it, seconded by Councillor Carr. Councillor Millet, you asked for this to be pulled, so go ahead, sir.
Thank you, and I'm going to support it. I think it needs just a little more of an explanation as well, but I have a question for Mr. DeCola. Is Mr. DeCola
Yes, yep.
switched on? Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Director DeCola. The report that's before us speaks to the lifespan, the expected lifespan of the Thurlow landfill. And I see that we had in a report that was presented to the city some 6 years ago, five and a bit, April 2015, that over the last 10 years, the estimated remaining life has varied from 11 to 25. I think from your report, we're looking at somewhere now that we're looking at it in a lifespan of about 11 years. Can you just explain what that means? And then I'll move to my question afterwards.
Go ahead, Mr. DeCola.
Thank you and good evening. And through the chair to Councillor Millet, the 11 years, it's about 11.2 years based on our current fill rate and materials coming in from other city works operations. So we bring in certain materials from various digs and jobs along our city infrastructure, from public works and the transportation operational group, as well as the environmental services group. The material that's going in there, if it goes in at too high a rate, it will impact the life cycle. And also with the last couple of calendar years with growth in the Thurlow ward, it's further impacted, and we've seen that trend line go down for the number of years of available life expectancy in Thurlow.
Go ahead, Councillor Millet.
Okay, so just for the edification as well of a lot of our residents from Thurlow who may be surprised to know that their neighborhood has its own landfill. This does not accept household garbage or waste at this time, although it did at one time. Can you just explain the purpose and use, other than, as you say, fill at the landfill a little bit, Mr. DeCola?
Yes, I can, through the chair to Councillor Millet. The landfill is an active landfill currently. It receives municipal waste from Thurlow ward and the industrial customers as well as residential customers. So materials that are generated in Thurlow head to the Thurlow waste and landfill site.
Okay, sorry about that first bit. Yes, it does receive municipal waste, but my last final point is, and it's a question, nowhere in this report, Mr. DeCola, did I see the explanation of any form of a leachate system. Is that built into any end of life attenuation program for this site?
So we have many offsite, through the chair to your Councillor Millet, sorry. Yep. Zoom has been interesting and it's a little different in the protocols. And I just experienced a power failure literally seconds before I came back online.
Okay.
So there is monitoring wells in the proximity of the landfill. Municipality further expanded purchasing lands in the area of the landfill back, I believe it was in the early 2000s, and extended a little further out. The leachate collection system is not part of the landfill development in Thurlow based on when it was created and how it was created. It was a landfill. The best methodology that we can do is to try and minimize the impacts, contain, and use the proper end of life cycles for this landfill to encapsulate it and ensure that future generations are protected.
So, and just to sum up, we're talking a liner and a clay cap, so all standard procedure for decommissioning of a landfill right now. But leachate collection itself, I guess, more to my point, that can be a bugaboo for landfills.
That can be, yes. To date, we haven't seen offsite migration in any notable fashion. So it could be a bugaboo, as using the terminology correctly. But again, the proper capping and the clay barriers should help to assist in the remediation. The bottom is capped, so you will encapsulate it at the end of the day.
Thanks. That was my final question. Thanks very much, Mr. DeCola.
Thank you, Councillor Millette. Councillor Alsop.
Yes, through the chair to Director DeCola. I saw in the report that some of the costs in terms of the end of the life cycle of the waste disposal site could be defrayed by doing sort of preemptive shaping, as well as if it's possible to find clay deposits nearer to the site. I was just wondering, is that something that we're actively doing, and have we been able to locate any of that fill material close by?
As for the fill material, I'm not able to comment directly upon that, but as for the shaping, the operational staff from the Transportation and Operations Department are doing an excellent job in maintaining and actually shaping the landfill following the contours as laid out by Blue Metrics. So I give them great praise, and we're dealing with a situation where it's a fairly technical aspect, and they are doing a great job out there. The other areas in which we can prolong the life of the landfill is perhaps limiting urban application. So the more urban sections of Thurlow Ward, maybe it might be better to follow along the same lines as the urban Belleville sections instead of going to the Thurlow landfill because of the population growth that has happened. But that's not a decision. That is something to come in a further report in addressing long-term strategies.
Thank you, Director.
Okay, anyone else on this? All right, so the resolution is that the report be received as information. All in favor? It's carried, thank you. So we will now move to 8B12, the local workforce requirements, Manager of Economic and Strategic Initiatives, report number ECDEV 2021-05. And the resolution is that the Manager of Economic and Strategic Initiatives, report number ECDEV 2021-05, regarding local workforce requirements be received. Can I, Councillor Williams raised this, seconded by Councillor Alsop. Councillor Williams, you brought it up. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Through the chair, wondering if I can have Manager Post come on and just give a little bit of oversight on this report and what's happening.
Okay, great. Manager Post, can you give a little bit of an update on that report?
Certainly, Your Worship. So we talk with our businesses every day about what's happening in the community, where pinch points or points of pain are for them. And it's very clear in almost every single business owner I talk to, they're very clear in their concerns around labor. If we take the experience of our job fairs, we have more than 50 local employers who take a full day out to come and attend our job fairs to try and attract workers. We hear from our employers that not only do they need workers with specific skills, but they're struggling to fill even entry-level positions. And often they use these entry-level positions to then populate higher skilled positions once those individuals have been in the job for a while. So the labor issue is pretty much at all levels in every sector and with almost every employer in the community.
Thank you. Thank you, Manager Post. And we're hearing this at all levels. It's unprecedented that during a pandemic, we're hearing of problems with the workforce. You think it'd be the other way around, but in QEDC, certainly through our department and through businesses, we're hearing it, as Manager Post said, across all levels. We have some great programs like Elevate Plus that Queen Economic Development is initiated in, which helps people get into positions. And even something that was really shocking to hear in the summer was we weren't able to fill cohorts, so we couldn't get people in. So it's something that we've identified at EDDC. I know Manager Post, we've identified it. We have some labor market surveys that are being completed right now. Manager Post, what is the survey? If you can just ask from Workforce Center of Development, can you just please let council know what they are doing right now and when we hope to have that report back?
Certainly, through your worship to Councillor Williams. So the Centre for Workforce Development is currently completing their Employer One survey. So it asks all kinds of questions from local employers, including sort of what their current labor market needs are and what future labor market needs will be, so that they can identify and quantify what labor requirements the region will have. That data that they collect is actually aggregated with data collected by other training boards and workforce offices around the province. So the information that is gathered is exceptionally useful, not just for us, but for higher levels of government as well, in terms of incenting training and dealing with new immigration as well. So we're hoping to have that information in the spring from the Centre for Workforce Development. And if there are any employers out there in the city listening to this council meeting, if they have not completed their Employer One survey, we would really appreciate that being completed so that we can have a more accurate picture of what our labor needs are going to be.
And thank you. And I think, you know, we're going to have to probably be looking at some innovative new ways in order to help these employers. We'll get some data, and data is absolutely what we need before we can make any action. The what's mentioned in the report is the instead of Belleville work plan or work program or work in Belleville program, it's now going to be a work in Quinte program. So we're joining forces with Quinte West to help build that program, but it might have to be even more measures where we look at even what's been suggested perhaps as an idea is even some kind of job hunting or head hunting that brings together all the businesses or the region to find some skilled labor and even some of these entry-level jobs. So some of it probably is communication, that we need just to communicate better the jobs that are available here in this area to the residences. Some of it is going to be working with Loyalist College and developing skills. And certainly some of it's going to be having to attract that talent, but it is a problem, and it's good for council to know that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else on this matter? Councillor Kelly and then Councillor McCaw. Go ahead, Councillor Kelly.
Through you, am I okay to go? Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thanks, Manager Post, for the report. I just wanted to read a line for those that might be watching tonight. Manager Post writes, conversations with local manufacturers alone indicate there are more than 1,000 jobs in Belleville in this one sector. So, and I know from the meeting last week, Manager Post, that the city does take resumes and people come looking for hire people through the city. If you can just give us in a couple of comments just how many people over the course of a month, talent, and how many resumes a week do you get on an average week? Just kind of give us an idea what you're dealing with in your department.
Certainly, through his worship to Councillor Kelly. So pre-COVID, we would get, in an average week, we might get 20 to 40 resumes of people both in the area and from outside the area. They would send them to us. We categorize them and make them available to any local employer looking to hire. We certainly noticed a decline in receiving those resumes during the pandemic, unfortunately. We're still getting requests from employers for resumes, but we don't have quite the supply of them that we would normally have. We do have another career fair coming up. It's scheduled for March 10th. It will be a virtual career fair, much as we did in the fall. And we're working with our Employment Ontario partners across the city, as well as with the library, to encourage anybody looking for work to participate in that virtual career fair.
Okay, I think you said you're good with that. So we'll move on to Councillor McCaw.
Thank you, through you. I just wanted to initially bring it on the floor so that people would take note of the report and see some of the employers who are actually looking for some assistance in case somebody is out there that, you know, may be interested in working for one of these companies. Also, I think we had this discussion, and I don't know whether it was in council or maybe at an EDDC meeting, an opportunity to create a program to incentivize individuals to train in certain sectors. Much like we do, I guess it would be much like we do with the doctor recruitment program, whereby, you know, we can incentivize certain positions and have a program like that would actually incentivize people, much like doctor recruitment work. So that's something I think we brought up in EDDC that maybe we could look at some point and examine that idea a little bit further. So again, I just wanted to thank Manager Post. I did ask her for this information, and I think it's important that these employers, they get out there their names, that they are actually looking to hire. Thanks.
Great. Anyone else on this? So Manager Post, I have a couple questions for you, and I apologize for not bringing them forward to you before. On the list of companies that you have on page 3 of your report, which one would you say has been experiencing labor shortage for the longest period of time, and when would that have started? I know that I should have asked you before, and I apologize.
That's okay. No, that's no problem at all. Certainly, I would say the manufacturing sector, I would say, is probably sort of the sector that's been having the biggest challenges when it comes to attracting and retaining workers. Auto Systems certainly comes to mind, Hannon, even Procter & Gamble, JBS Foods, Black Diamond, they're all challenged to find employees. One of the challenges they face is an aging workforce. So many of those employers are seeing a lot of their workers retire. And so not only are they having to hire to accommodate growth, they're also having to hire to replace workers that are leaving the workforce. So it's a real challenge. And, you know, if you look at Auto Systems alone, they employ about 1,000 people. So to have an ongoing supply of labor for an employer that large, it's a real challenge.
But how long have they been experiencing these problems that you're aware of?
It's not a new challenge, that's for sure. I think it's been heightened by the pandemic. It's become more of an issue because of absenteeism. But we've been helping them with their labor supply needs for, I'm going to say, at least 8 years.
And you know, and part of the challenge is, and it's not going to solve the problem, because I think at QEDC last week they've identified over 2,000 jobs that today are vacant because they can't find people with the skills for it. How long have we been running the resume program, where we try to match applicants with businesses, as well as the job fair program?
Yeah, we started those programs, I'm going to say around 2007. About 2008, we started participating with Quinte West. So we brought them into the project, and we share the costs and the work associated with both the job fair and the Work in Belleville program.
Right. And, you know, like I think back to when I first got involved in a city committee back on 2003, when we had the Belleville Economic Development Committee that former Councillor George Beer chaired at that time. And I think that was one of the first times I met you, Manager Post. But even back then, we were experiencing labor shortages in the city, and we were concerned about a retiring workforce and, you know, what to do. And since then, we have seen the construction of the Skills Center. We have seen particularly the Quinte Economic Development Commission lead a process of, you know, of traveling around the province and searching for employees, these attraction programs. And, you know, 20 years later, we're still in a similar situation, you know, moving forward. And in many cases, perhaps even it's more serious today, because there are more vacancies that are there. But I guess the point I'm making is that, you know, we have always seemed to have had a labor shortage in this market. You know, the data that we need to, I think, search for is about what are we going to do differently than we've done over the last 15 to 20 years to seek employees. You know, a lot of our manufacturers can only be here while they have a workforce. They're bringing in people, they're putting them up in hotels so they can work shifts in their facility so they can manufacture and produce their goods. And if they cannot manufacture, produce their goods here, they will have to go somewhere else to do so. So that's why it's such an important and urgent issue, but it's not a new issue. I guess that's what I'm trying to bring up for it. It's not something that suddenly showed up because of COVID or suddenly showed up because our council was elected in 2018. It's been a long-standing issue and one in which I think we have to change the way we are doing it. Now, perhaps our focus on increasing rental accommodation in the city as a way to not just deal with the housing crisis, but also to grow our population will go a long ways, because when you can provide housing and people can move here, they move here with their families, and there are more people who can fill positions. But you know, it certainly is a challenge that predates us and will post-date us for sure as we move forward. But thank you for pulling the report together. Thank you, Councillor McCaw, for asking for it. And there is a list of companies that are actively looking for employees. Anyone who possibly wants to work, I encourage to look into that list and apply. All right, my colleagues, the report is, the resolution is to have the report received. I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. So we'll now move on to item 8C, council information matters, where council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council shall consider such items individually. So I'll go the other way, starting with Councillor McCaw. No. Councillor Williams? No. Councillor Thompson?
8C2F.
F. Okay, perfect. Councillor Alsop?
8C.
8C2.
C.
D as in dog?
C.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't hear you, thank you. So
No.
C is Alsop. All right, Councillor Kelly?
No.
Thank you. Councillor Carr?
No, thank you.
Councillor Millette?
8C2H, item H, please.
Okay. Councillor Sanderson?
No, thank you.
Okay, so I have a couple items that I'd like to pull, and maybe someone else will move them. I'd like to pull item D and item G, and I'll speak to them if someone will move them later on. So the motion is that the following items be received, save and accept items 8C2C, D, F, G, and H. Can I get a motion for that, please? Moved by Councillor Alsop, seconded by Councillor Millette. All in favor, it's carried. So we'll go to item 8C2C, request the Premier of Ontario, the Minister of Attorney General, and local members of Parliament to ask that the province consider amending its licensing and application process for cannabis retail stores to consider radial separation from other cannabis locations. It is a December 14th, 2020 resolution from the City of Port Colborne. Councillor Alsop has moved, seconded by Councillor Carr. Councillor Alsop, you asked for this to be pulled. Go ahead, sir.
Yes. My concern here is that obviously I think most sensible people would agree that we need a policy around spacing of cannabis stores. The issue I have is that in the letter, it doesn't specify any sort of range. And so we're being asked to sign on to a letter that could potentially limit competition and could make it more difficult for consumers to access product in a free and fair way. I mean, certainly a barrier, a radial separation of 100 meters might make sense. That has smaller economic zones that are dispersed, similar to what we have here. A radial separation of 1 kilometer would effectively mean that you would only be able to have one in a downtown area or up in a mall area. So I'd want to make sure that if we are going to be signing on to this, that we had a sense of what could be coming down the road in terms of the distance of the separation.
Okay, so certainly we're not required to endorse this. When we pull items, it's because we want to discuss them to either make a point and then defeat the resolution so we don't endorse it, or to do it or to amend it. So, you know, I guess requiring further information for you in terms of what that distance would be for the separation. Do you want to How do you want to proceed with it? A couple options would be that we don't endorse the resolution now, and if it's defeated, then council won't be supporting it. Or we could ask for information regarding, similar situations. I think of last term, Councillor Carr and I had proposed resolutions to limit the number of payday loan establishments based on a geographic area of the city, so that we didn't see a proliferation like we were seeing, I believe at that time. Councillor Carr is nodding his head. They were all on Front Street. They seem to be in a pretty small area. So we wanted to make sure that, they were permitted, that we can't prevent them from being in the city, but we wanted to see them spaced out. I think that's probably similar to how we would want to proceed with cannabis retail locations, where we certainly made a decision as a council this term that we wanted to be a willing host of cannabis retail locations, but we don't want them all clustered in one small area. So do you have a suggestion of how you want us to proceed with that?
So I would be looking for more information as to what sort of distances would be defined.
Okay, so let me just double check with the clerk here on the process. Okay, good. We're all going to learn something today. The clerk is recommending that we defeat the resolution and then ask for a staff report on a resolution that would have radial separation restrictions, what that might look like.
Perfect.
Okay. Anyone else on this item? Okay, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is defeated. So under new business, Councillor Alsap, I'll recognize you to ask for a report on what this would look like with radial separation. Okay, good. Thank you. So that was 8C2C. We'll move now to 8C2D. Request the province immediately review the cost of municipal insurance increases and consider the 7 AMO recommendations to address insurance issues and investigate the unethical practice of preferred vendors. This is the January 20th, 2021 resolution from the Municipality of Grey Highlands. I wonder if someone would move and second that for me, and then we can get it on the floor. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Sandison. So, it has been a long-standing frustration for municipalities that the fact that we are joint and severally responsible for claims means that we as the party typically with the deepest pockets are the ones that always get hit on it. And it has increased our insurance costs significantly. And this year we are seeing sizable increases. And so the AMO has recommended 7 different items that the province of Ontario can do to assist us with reducing those costs. I don't think any of them are overly controversial, and I would hope that we would support it. Anyone else like to speak on this matter? I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. We now move on to 8C2F, a request that the province pass the necessary regulations for municipalities to use automatic speed enforcement photo radar. It is a January 5th, 2021 resolution from the Township of Southwest Oxford. Councillor Thompson asked to have this moved, so he'll move it, seconded by Councillor Carr. Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
I'd like to amend it that we refer it back to the Transportation Committee, because we have discussed this to a certain degree on radar, and I'd like to have it go back to the Transportation with a recommendation coming forward at a future meeting.
When is your committee meeting again, Councillor Thompson?
It's usually the fourth Wednesday of the month.
Okay. I'm glad you pulled it, because I wanted to pull it as well. So the resolution is that there's currently test projects in place in Ontario, most notably in the municipalities of Toronto and Ottawa, and they've seen great assistance in slowing down traffic speed in those neighborhoods. And I know I referred to your committee previously the issue of not just photo radar, but also red light cameras that are now being tested. Has the committee been working through those issues?
Yes, we've had some reports from the staff, and this would really go a long ways sort of bringing the two of them together, maybe possibly come with one report.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you for the work of you and that committee. Anyone else like to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. It's carried and it's referred to the Transportation Committee. 8C2G, request federal and provincial governments provide immediate, broad, and substantial municipal funding opportunities for well-planned, shovel-ready projects already prioritized under municipal asset management plans to provide immediate stimulus to local, provincial, and federal economies in order to rebound from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. It is a January 20th, 2021 resolution from the town of Bracebridge, whose mayor is the current president of the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. If I can get a mover and a seconder for this, please. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Williams. I had asked to have this pulled again. You know, we all been talking about infrastructure, and while we have had some infrastructure programs, we are still waiting for additional support for many of them. This is a good ask, I think, from the AMO and from the town of Bracebridge, that we continue to have this top of mind for the federal and provincial governments, and I'll certainly be supporting it. Anyone else like to speak on this item? I don't see anybody, so I'll call a question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. And then item 8C2H, request the Solicitor General review the imposed deadline for municipalities to complete and adopt a community safety and well-being plan in consultation with local governments to address the unique challenges facing individual regions. February 1st, 2021 letter from the Township of Asphodel, Norwood. Did I say that right, Councillor Millette? Because you know
Yes.
all the names of the townships and
Well, yes,
hamlets and villages.
It is
in Ontario.
Asphodel, yes.
So Councillor Millette has moved it, seconded by Councillor Williams. Go ahead, Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had discussed this earlier with CAO Bove in regard to where we might be for anyone who doesn't know, this item is basically asking the Solicitor General, the Honorable Sylvia Jones, to please extend the deadline as had previously been done. For some inexplicable reason, as Mr. Bove had outlined to me, we had until December 31st of 2021. The deadline for filing the Community Safety and Well-Being Plan is now July 1st, 2021, and that gives us barely 6 months to complete this. I have 2 questions, I guess, to Mr. Bove, if I could, Your Worship, through you to Mr. Bove. Mr. Bove, do you know at what point our city's development or our region's development, I don't know if we're developing this in conjunction with the Community Safety and Well-Being Situation Table, or is it an initiative that has to be undertaken by the individual municipality? And if so, would we benefit from an extension of this deadline?
Through the chair to Councillor Millette, certainly it is a plan that individual communities have to undertake at the direction of the province. Unfortunately, they didn't allow for regional plans or multiple communities working together who might have common interests in this. But that unfortunately is the hand we're dealt, so we'll move ahead with it. Yeah, you're correct. The original deadline was the end of 2020, and because of COVID, the province discussed moving the deadline to the end of 21, and then at the last minute switched it to July 1st of 21. So it's put a number of municipalities in a bit of a bind in terms of getting this done, and we're in the same situation. I think to do this plan correctly and to give it the significance and the attention that it deserves will involve a program with a strong working group from the local community, from all the social service agencies that do work in Belleville, along with Belleville Police and Hastings County. And it will be a challenge, obviously, with some restrictions still in place to deal with the required public consultation to get the feedback. I think that's required to develop a good plan. So, we're hoping to get started very soon on it, given that the deadline is still July 1st. But having some extra time that might allow that consultation and work with the community to happen with a little less restriction in terms of meeting would be beneficial for sure.
Yeah, and that's where I was going with this, and why I propose that we support Asphodel Norwood's resolution, similar to what we've seen in the process that I want to have for the community forum on policing and mental health, which, by the way, shameless plug, is finally going to get off the ground March 9th, but there'll be more on that shortly. I believe that this is a very important matter that has pretty much sailed under the radar, and as good on Asphodel Norwood to bring it up and say, listen, we need better community engagement. We need, as Mr. Bove outlined, more engagement by our community agencies, the Community Safety and Wellbeing Situation Table for the county, and by police. And if it's going to be done right, it's going to take the time to do it. So I would hope we would support this motion, and hopefully the minister is listening, and we can utilize the advantages of having a member of around the cabinet table, Mr. Smith, to bring it forward.
Great. Anyone else on this item? Councillor Kelly? No? Okay. Anyone else want to speak on this? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you very much, everybody. So we'll now move to motion to rise and report. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor McCaw. All in favor? It's carried. We'll now move to bylaws, and we will deal with first reading of bylaws. And if it's okay with everyone, I'll just read the numbers. So first reading of bylaws 2021-25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, and 32. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Alsap, seconded by Councillor Millette. All in favor? It's carried. Second reading of bylaws 2021-25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Sandison. Any discussion on any of those bylaws? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? It's carried. And third and final reading of bylaws number 2021-25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, and 32. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Sandison and Councillor Thompson. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. So we will now move to new business, and I would like to start off by some very exciting news. This afternoon, Premier Ford made an announcement on the reopening of our region as per the latest restrictive orders put in place since December 26, 2020. We shall continue to work through these changes, and we'll update residents and businesses as we have more information we're able to share. But as Kermit the Frog would have said, it is good to be green. City staff have been working on a robust reopening plan as we continue to bring services and facilities back online. But I want to share just a few reminders for residents and businesses to keep in mind over the coming days. City Hall continues to remain open from 9 a.m. until 3 p.m. by appointment only over the next few days. If you require in-person services, it is easiest to pre-book your appointment, and we are expecting City Hall to reopen to the public on a socially distanced manner on Tuesday, February the 16th. Transit and other operations of the City of Belleville continue without COVID-19 interruption, as we have been since prior to the December 26th province-wide shutdown. The Quinte Sports and Wellness Center will return to operations on Tuesday, February the 16th, and staff will be reaching out to user groups to resume their activities. So for ICE and the Belleville swim team, they will be back in the facility on February the 16th. Recreational swims, aquafit, pickleball, table tennis, and advanced aquatic courses will start the week of February 22nd. Registration for those programs will start on February the 16th. And all fitness classes will be virtual for the Winter B session, and that runs from February the 22nd to March the 27th. Registration started today for those programs. I want to remind residents that we will continue to operate as the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center as we were prior to the December 26th new restrictions. So that means that all organizations renting and those who will be using the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center will be restricted to residents of green, yellow, and orange health unit zones, in addition to our standard screening protocols for safety and precaution. I can say that archives, our normal COVID opening hours at the archives continue 11 to 1 and 2 to 4, Monday to Thursday, starting again on Tuesday, February the 16th. The Glenmore National Historic Site will return to its normal operating hours on Tuesday, February the 16th. And the Belleville Public Library will also reopen to the public on Tuesday, February the 16th. I ask residents to stay tuned for more information as we release information on the city website and social media. And I try to include this information on my weekly updates on my Facebook page, as well as the weekly Your TV broadcasts that I have been doing since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. For users of the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center, I would suggest it would be a good refresher to view the videos that staff have put together for what to expect when using that facility. I want to discuss the warming room or the warming center. It has been activated several times this winter, including over the last few weeks, and we expect it to continue to be open over the coming weeks. A reminder that it is running out of the former Belleville Police Service building and is open from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. on days that the weather forecast activates this space. I should take this opportunity to remind residents that Hastings County Emergency Housing provides services to anyone experiencing emergency homelessness every single day of the year, including during the winter. If you or anyone you know needs emergency housing services, please call 1-866-569-1941 for immediate assistance. The city-operated overnight warming center is not a housing project. It is simply a service provided during extremely cold temperatures as we continue to work with Hastings County to provide housing services. I would like to remind residents that all winter trails and parks are open, so we encourage you to take advantage of getting outside for some physical and mental exercise, including walks, hiking, etc. It was amazing yesterday as I toured the city to see how many residents were out enjoying our beautiful outdoors, including the folks that were at the Victoria Harbor, skating on the ice that staff from the city are maintaining, as well as at West Zwick's Park and all the other community rinks and facilities in the city. You know, we must take care of ourselves during this difficult time. And as long as you respect all the safety protocols in place, we want you to enjoy our municipal facilities. I would also like to encourage everyone to visit our new and improved website and take advantage of the many online services that are offered. Just go to www.belleville.ca for all the information on the city of Belleville, including a page devoted to news about the COVID-19 related issues. I have been trying to keep up with weekly video updates on my Facebook page, as well as with a separate weekly update episode on Your TV, as I said earlier. Information on those video messages are also available on the city website, and we have a YouTube channel devoted to this information. You know, lastly, on this item, I wanted to say that we recognize that this is a difficult and stressful time for many in our city in many different ways. And I want residents and businesses to know that your well-being is our highest priority. We are very excited and grateful for the decision of the provincial government today to allow our region to return to the green standard of operating procedures that was prior to December 26th. And I know that our businesses and our residents will continue to be vigilant and to be very careful so that we can stay in this region, stay in the green zone. And I look forward to having more information on this as we go forward, because at the end of the day, as a council, we remain collectively and singularly focused on your safety and the health of our residents in all of our decisions. Does anyone else have any new business they would like to bring up? Councillor Millette, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I appreciate you starting with me because it's in tandem with what you had just discussed. I received some messages today from residents who noted that on a Ontario Minor Hockey Association (OMHA) social media pages, there's been some discussion of Belleville hosting minor hockey tournaments now that we are have moved to green, and the people that reached out to me were concerned that these might be teams from other areas. I know you mentioned only green, yellow, and orange zone people would be. Does this extend to teams that visit from these tournaments? I think the concern was we might get some GTHL teams that are entering these tournaments. I don't know. I'm just passing on what the concerns have been and what measures are we taking to ensure that our sports facilities aren't used by groups coming in from some of these areas.
So the short answer, Councillor Millette, is yes. We will be restricting the use of our facility for teams that are within those colored zones, and also teams that don't travel into zones with higher, speaking of red and gray, or this provincial lockdown area. And this is an administrative decision that was taken by Director Beauvais and staff from the City of Belleville. There are provincial hockey associations that govern the traveling of teams outside of their health units, and we found that it wasn't sufficient in order to protect indoor activities in the City of Belleville, specifically at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center. So teams that are locally based teams that want to play other teams can do so if they are in a green, yellow, or orange zone. And provided they pass the screening protocols at the door to gain entrance to the facility that everybody must go through. So simply because you come from a green zone doesn't mean that you will be permitted to use the facility if during the screening questionnaire it comes out that you have been exposed to things. Safety of our residents and our staff is paramount, and we will continue to do that through the course of the next several months. So, for example, outdoor activities, which we know that we have less concern because people are in open space, city staff will begin to take bookings for outdoor athletic facilities, and there is no restriction in terms of who will be using that at that time. But for indoor activities, we will continue to restrict that throughout the course of the summer until staff make any different decisions. CAO Beauvais, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I'll simply add that we made the decision when the province went to the color system last year that we would put a restriction in place for anyone trying to book the facility or come into the facility from any of the red or gray zones. And we consistently applied that all through the latter part of 2020. And we will continue with that now that we're back into that color-coded system.
So just to, if I may, Your Worship, just to clarify then, if there is a local tournament that operates and good on the kids for wanting to get back on the ice, if they have any entry teams coming from areas that are in a red or a gray zone, as you said, they would be barred from participating in the tournament. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
But also, Councillor Millette, it's important to say any of our local teams that travel to one of those zones, and I don't know how they would be able to place. I think their restrictions don't permit it. But if they travel there, or if they have any individual members who reside in those health unit zones that are gray or red, they would not be allowed to participate in our facility.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And of course, every day that I come to City Hall, I have to answer the question. So the screening questions at the sites are, you know, are you feeling healthy? Do you have any symptoms of COVID? Have you been near anyone who's been diagnosed with COVID? Have you been asked to self-isolate, and have you been near anyone who's been asked to self-isolate? If you answer yes to any of those questions, then you're not permitted to have entry as well. So that's the additional screening on top of where you're from. Okay, anyone else for new business? Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I got two things, Mr. Mayor. The first one is you talked about the warm room or the cold room. There's been a lot of talk back and forth on social media about food there. We want to make it clear that the deputy fire chief and the Hastings County regulate what goes on in that room. Do they deny food? No, they don't. But the fire chief, deputy fire chief, I've been to talk with him, and he said anybody that has a concern can certainly get a hold of him, and we can provide his email and get a hold of him. But the fact is, we do receive food. There's no guarantee what happens at the end of it, but please keep in mind that there is a number of people that are concerned about that, that please get a hold of the fire chief or our mayor, and so that we can get this cleared up and we don't run into a real issue. But the fact of what I want to say is we do accept food down there, but there is some limitations. Thank you.
Okay.
The other thing,
COVID-19 restrictions, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. And the other thing is, I don't know where Manager Karen Post is still with us or not, but I sort of, and I don't know whether we have much impact on what goes downtown during the festivities, but I'd certainly like, because there was such a hype last summer with our downtown, I certainly wouldn't want to see it go flat this year, just because. So if we can have any influence on helping the downtown through Karen's post office, through the DBIA, and through the Chamber of Commerce, I think it's important that we try to make sure that we keep that excitement downtown in some way, shape, or form. So I just like to put that out there to Manager Karen Post and say that, you know, please work with the DBIA, Chamber of Commerce, to create that excitement, because downtown was the best we've ever had in a long time at our downtown, and it would be nice to stay that way. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Councillor Thompson. That's a good point. And, you know, and the reality is the kudos or the credit for that goes to the BDIA for not accepting COVID-19 shutdowns. Councillor Williams, you're our rep on the BDIA board. And I know that we will be dealing at operating budget with some requests regarding their schedule of activities. But I wonder if, just because Councillor Thompson's asked that question, can you reassure him that there is a robust plan of activities for the summer of 2021 so we don't lose that momentum?
Oh, yes. And there's a lot of activities planned, and I know that we're bringing that to budget, but downtown will want to continue the momentum that they built last year and to continue to build, which has been a very successful rollout of their new strategic plan and utilizing all the businesses that are down there. So absolutely, that'll be coming very shortly, hopefully by March 8th, I believe, or March.
Yeah. So again, just the BDI is going to be doing activities. They're planning on investing money. They've asked for the city to also invest money like we did last year and previous years. And so that will be referred to the operating budget for the March 30th meeting, I believe is the date of their operating budget.
And I intend to, as the alternative, I know Mr. Ryan Williams, councillor, is our rep on, but I'm planning to attend that DBI meeting as the alternative, just to see what's going on.
Good, excellent, good. All right, Councillor Alsap, a new business.
Yes, pursuant to our discussion about item 8C2C relating to cannabis
thank you. Yeah.
separation, I would like to request that staff generate a report outlining the recommendations as it relates to cannabis retail store radial separation for our next council meeting.
Terrific. Mr. McDonald has got that, and he actually wrote it down when he gave us his advice about how to deal with it under the resolutions. Anyone else for new business? Okay, so seeing none, we'll move. There are no motions today. Anyone have any notice of motions? Councillor McCaw.
Thank you, through you. Can you hear me okay? I was having some problems.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. If I could put a notice of motion on the floor. for council consideration of a resolution that would direct staff to prepare a letter to the Honorable Doug Ford requesting the implementation of term limits for all municipal councils, each individual member, I should say, across the province. And further, that if this request is supported, that all municipalities across the province, if we could send and ask for support of that resolution.
Okay, so this is the first I've heard of this, Councillor McCaw. You're saying term limits. Do you have a specific number in mind?
3 term limits.
Sorry?
3 term limits.
A limit of three terms.
Right.
Okay. If you can just provide that in writing to the clerk so that it can be included on the agenda for the next meeting, I'd appreciate it. Anyone else for notice of motions? All right, then we'll move to announcements. Anyone have any announcements they'd like to make today? I'll start with Councillor Carr.
Thank you. Just a reminder to the public, I'm hosting a virtual town hall Thursday, March 25th at 6:30. Register by sending me an email, councillor.carr@belleville.ca. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly, new business, or sorry, announcements.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to give a thank you to anyone from the city that's been involved with Victoria Harbor and looking after the ice. I have a bird's eye view of that place every morning, and there are people out skating at 6:30. And I know on the weekends it was used this past weekend, and with the snow day this past Friday, it's wonderful to see so many families and individuals out there enjoying the facilities there at Victoria Harbor. So kudos to the staff that are making that ice rink look like, NHL surface. Also, too, this is Black History Month, and the Belleville Inclusion Committee has a meeting coming up on February the 16th. I'm going to see if I can work with Mark Coyle, who's our internet top dog and celebrating his birthday today. If we could maybe have people in the community to join us. Mark Phillips is going to be our guest speaker, a very successful individual in this area. So we're working to see if we can make that available for others to watch it, or we'll record it and we'll hear Mr. Phillips' story on his very successful journey coming to Canada. So Belleville celebrates Black History Month.
Thank you. Anyone else for announcements? All right. So I have a couple of proclamations to start with. I would like to proclaim February the 22nd as World Thinking Day in the city of Belleville. This day unites Girl Guides from across the world for a day of international friendship. It is an opportunity to speak out on issues that affect girls and young women, to celebrate the founding of the Girl Guides, and to connect the 10 million members in 50 countries who are part of the worldwide Girl Guide movement. The Belleville sign and the bridge will be lit blue in recognition of this very important day. I would like to proclaim February the 11th, 2021 as 211 Day in the city of Belleville. 211 is the number to call when you are looking for food, shelter, mental health support, indeed any community or government program or service. Communities from across Ontario and Canada will be paying tribute to the importance of 211 in helping Canadians and celebrating the frontline staff of 211. I encourage all citizens of Belleville who face various challenges in their lives to contact 211. This service is here to help connect you to the service or program that you may need. As Councillor Kelly just said, February 1st marked the first day of Black History Month. This year's theme, The Future is Now, is a chance for us to celebrate and acknowledge the transformative work that Black Canadians are doing right now. I would like to encourage residents to participate in online events, take time for education, and engage in conversation. This month in particular, as we celebrate the important impact that Black Canadians have had and continue to have here in Belleville, in our region, and indeed across the globe. As we've spoken about, the ice at both Victoria Harbor and the cove behind the Lions Pavilion at West Zwick's Park is now open for skaters. Please remember to practice physical distancing and wear a mask if physical distancing is not possible, even if you are outdoors. Applications for the Community Garden Program are now open. Successful applicants will receive a plot at one of the 3 city-run gardens to make their own during the 2021 gardening season. Applications will be accepted from Belleville residents up until February the 28th. For more information and to apply, please visit the city's website. A reminder to all residents that if you have received a letter from the city's Parks and Open Spaces Department requesting your participation in our playground study, you have until February the 26th to submit your responses. The information and results collected will help us create playgrounds that best serve the neighborhoods within our city. On January the 28th, I was very pleased to present a check for $225,000 to Jennifer May Anderson of Hospice Quinte for the Heart and Home Care Center during a very brief and physically distanced handover. The 6-bed center will provide those in our community in advanced stages of a life-limiting illness with comfort and dignity and the best quality of life for them and their family. And this check that I gave on January 28th takes our contribution already now to $325,000 on the way to our $1 million commitment. Last Wednesday, on February the 3rd, I was pleased to present a check for $11,752 to Ruth Ingersoll of Community Development Council of Quinte during a brief handover in a socially distanced manner. The CDC is a nonprofit charitable organization whose goal is to reduce poverty and improve the quality of life and health for everyone in our community through research, alliances, programs, and services, running things like the Good Baby Box, the Good Food Box program, our community gardens, community kitchens, and the Good Food Market. Thank you to them, and thank you for the generosity of council in supporting those projects. We'll now move on to a confirmatory bylaw, that bylaw number 2021-33, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on February the 8th, 2021, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 8th day of February 2021. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor McCaw, seconded by Councillor Alsap. All in favor, it's carried. My colleagues, just before I ask for a motion to adjourn, just to give you a little bit of what the next few weeks may look like, we anticipate with the renovations being done at City Council, the City Council chambers, that the next meeting on March the 8th for sure will be an online Zoom meeting. And then the second meeting in March, depending on how developments go with this return now to the green stage, that we would meet in person. If council chambers are not ready, we're very grateful to the Belleville Public Library that have offered the Parrot Gallery for a potential location for a council meeting. And if not there, then we have the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center or the Jerry Masterson Center in Thurlow Ward as well. So we will let you know when we have more information on that. But right now we anticipate that the next meeting, unless a special meeting has to be called, but on the next meeting on March the 8th will be done virtually, and then we will see how that goes. Of course, Councillor Millette has made the announcement about his community forum. That'll be on March the 9th. That'll be held virtually. And then we have our budget meeting, the operating budget meeting to finalize the 2021 budget on scheduled for March the 30th. So more information as it becomes available, but I wanted to give you an idea of what to expect. And with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Millette. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you very much, everybody. If we don't see you before, we'll see you on March the 8th. Okay, I'll be right with you guys. I'm just going to look up what's come in since our meeting has started.